Welcome to This Explainer. Let's jump right into a situation most of us don't even think about until, we're suddenly standing in an ankle-deep puddle right in the middle of our living room. We're going to dive into the really fascinating, high-stakes science of home water disasters. And to do this, we'll use the unique geographical instructional challenges of Rancho Cordova, California as our microcosm. It's actually a perfect case study for understanding exactly how buildings react when water suddenly goes where it absolutely shouldn't.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be walking through 1. The anatomy of a water emergency. 2. The 48-hour ticking clock. 3. Categorizing the contamination. 4. The science of drying. And finally, 5. The step-by-step restoration process.
All right, Section 1, Anatomy of a Water Emergency. Let's explore exactly how and why water suddenly breaches a structure in the first place. So, environmental extremes stress a house year-round, right? If we look at our Rancho Cordova microcosm, during the winter, the region's heavy clay soil basically acts like a giant sponge. It swells up with rainwater and creates this immense hydrostatic pressure that literally pushes groundwater straight through solid concrete foundation cracks and cold joints. Crazy, right? But then, summer brings an entirely different set of threats. In 105-degree heat waves, air conditioning systems are just working overtime, turning out gallons of condensate that can overwhelm drain pans and silently leak down into ceilings. Now, combine that massive temperature swing with the aging 1970s galvanized plumbing found in a lot of these homes, and, well, you've got corroded pipe joints just waiting to burst in an attic or crawl space.
To really put the sheer volume of these sudden disasters into perspective, just think about the number 50. A single aging water heater failure, which is actually pretty common and often caused by just internal rust and sediment buildup, can unleash up to 50 gallons of water into a home in mere minutes. We aren't talking about a slow, annoying drip here. We are talking about water rushing under walls, totally soaking into baseboards, and flooding adjacent rooms before you even realize what the heck is happening. Moving to Section 2, the 48-hour ticking clock, because once that 50 gallons hits the floor, a terrifying countdown begins. This timeline maps out the critical race against nature. Notice that very first window, 60 minutes. That is the emergency response window where mitigation teams literally have to arrive to halt the spread. Why so fast? Well, because of that second marker. Within just 24 to 48 hours in a moist environment, aggressive mold begins to grow. Every single passing hour ramps up the severity of the damage. And here's the kicker. Even if you extract the standing water immediately, the structural materials themselves are going to take a full 3 to 7 days to properly dry out. Which brings us to Section 3, categorizing the contamination. Because as that clock is ticking, responders aren't just fighting time. They have to identify exactly what unseen hazards they're battling. According to the strict IICRC 500 standards, not all floods are created equal. Professional restoration crews actually categorize water by its contamination level, rather than just where it came from. Category 1 is clean water, say a busted supply line. Category 2 is gray water. This has some contaminants, like a washing machine overflowing. But notice Category 3 right there at the bottom? This is black water. And this completely elevates the crisis from a simple cleanup to a highly dangerous biological hazard. Because Category 3 water carries raw sewage, feces, or surface flooding from rivers, it is loaded with microscopic bacteria, viruses, and pathogens. You definitely can't just dry this out and call it a day. Specialized antimicrobial treatments using EPA-registered disinfectants are absolutely required. Furthermore, any porous materials that absorb this water, stuff like drywall, carpeting, insulation, they can't be sanitized safely. They literally have to be completely discarded. Plus, strict containment protocols have to be set up to protect the health of the home's occupants. In other words, to protect you and your family. All right, Section 4, the science of drying. So the crucial point here is that once the standing water is gone and the contamination is dealt with, the real battle against invisible moisture begins. You might think drying a flooded room just means, opening a window or plugging in a box fan. But restoration experts rely heavily on a field called psychrometrics. It's essentially the science of manipulating the indoor climate to literally force evaporation. You have to perfectly balance the temperature, the airflow velocity, and the dehumidification capacity to coax trapped, hidden water out of incredibly stubborn materials, like concrete foundation slabs and dense wood framing. To pull off this level of scientific drying, you need some serious hardware. We're talking specialized truck-mounted units that pull 10 times more water out of the environment than your standard household shop vacuum. Your trusty garage vac just isn't going to cut it here.
It simply leaves way too much moisture behind, which basically sets the stage for that 48-hour mold countdown we talked about earlier. And this incredible industrial power is necessary because, well, ordinary building materials act completely unpredictably when they're exposed to floods. Just think about this. Drywall secretly wicks moisture up to 2 feet above the visible floodline. It acts just like a giant sponge. So you might see a tiny puddle on the floor, but inside the wall, a massive column of moisture is secretly climbing right up your living room wall.
Let's bring it all together in Section 5, the step-by-step restoration process. Let's see how all this science actually builds into a logical resolution to save a devastated property. The professional restoration process actually follows 4 meticulous steps to guarantee safety. First up, assessment. This happens right in the first hour. Technicians shut off the water and use advanced thermal imaging cameras to map out temperature differentials. This reveals exactly where the moisture has spread behind walls and under floors. Second is extraction. They use those high-powered truck-mounted units we mentioned to rapidly suck up standing water. Third, drying. This means setting up commercial dehumidifiers and high-velocity air movers to apply that psychrometric science continuously over 3 to 7 days. And finally, verification. Technicians don't just guess when a house is dry. They rigorously verify the conditions using moisture meters, ensuring the affected areas perfectly match the baseline readings of the unaffected parts of the house.
As we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with this thought. Knowing the intense, hidden science of water mitigation, the speed at which damage escalates, and the sheer unpredictability of building materials, it really changes the way you look at a simple puddle on the floor, doesn't it? Take a second to consider. Knowing that microscopic threats can multiply in just 48 hours, what hidden vulnerabilities might be ticking away in your own home's aging plumbing right now? Thank you for joining me, and keep learning.